45th birthday, I realized I wasn't a father anymore. I was just a punchline. The whole family gathered around the dinner table, candles lit, cake in the center, and they sat me down at the head of the table, my seat of honor. "We have a surprise for you, Dad," my daughter said, holding a shiny gift-wrapped box like it carried hope inside. I opened it. Inside was a cheap plastic trophy with bold gold lettering that read, "World's #1 disappointment." They burst out laughing. My daughter held up her phone to film it. My wife doubled over, wheezing, "Knew it the moment I saw it. Totally you." My son clapped like he was in the audience of a game show. And me? I laughed too. Not because it was funny, but because I'd gotten so good at pretending this didn't hurt. I picked up the trophy like I was accepting an Oscar. Fake smile, fake applause. Then I blew out the 4 lukewarm candles on the cake and made a wish I never thought I'd make, that I had never shown up to that table. That night, while they all piled into the living room to laugh at some sitcom like they just won a prize for cruelty, I quietly cleaned up. Cake crumbs scattered across the table, the cake knife still sticky with frosting. Birthday wishes? Not a single sincere one. Just that plastic trophy gleaming under the kitchen light like a dagger in the back of whatever dignity I had left. I placed it on the fireplace mantel, let them see I accepted their gift. Then I walked out to the garage. My '89 Silverado was still there, rusted, old, but the only thing in this house that still felt like mine. I got into the driver's seat, closed the door, and let their laughter fade into the background like a bad dream. The clock read 2:38 a.m. I pulled out my phone, opened my bank app, almost zero. Then I Googled my own name. Nothing. No achievements, no bio, no trace. But then I opened the Notes app, and I typed one sentence at the top, exit plan, step by step. The next morning at exactly 6:15 a.m., I called in sick. First time in 3 years. My manager's voice cracked like ice on the other end. "Are you okay?" "Is it serious?" I just said, "No." I just realized I need to fix something I've let fall apart for 22 years. At 8:37 a.m., Ruth left the house to go shopping with her sister. Emily was at school. Oscar had just caught the bus. The house was quiet. I walked into the office, opened the drawer Ruth had labeled, "Do not touch my stuff." I touched it. I dug deep, and I found it. 3 credit card statements, completely unfamiliar. Total debt, over $34,000. My name wasn't on a single one. But every shipping address? Right here. This house. I kept digging. Found a bill for a second phone line, linked to a number I'd never seen. Something inside me broke, but I stayed silent. I picked up my phone and began taking pictures, page by page. 11 a.m. sharp, I walked into a different bank branch, alone. Opened a brand new checking account under one name, mine. The teller smiled and asked, "Everything all right at home, sir?" I smiled back. It's like a car with the check engine light on for a year, and I finally popped the hood. That afternoon I paid cash for a new phone, a number only I knew. That evening the house settled back into routine. Emily talked about a school party. Ruth complained that her mom's cooking was too bland. Oscar never even looked up from his phone. I scanned the table, the one I bought, the chairs I assembled when we couldn't afford a handyman. 3 people I once believed were family sat around it, completely detached. I nodded quietly, finished my dinner, and wondered, how long before they realized that the man they laughed at, the one they dismissed as a failure, is finally standing up and walking away. Saturday morning, Ruth and the kids left for her mother's, like they always did on weekends. The silence they left behind was exactly what I'd been waiting for. I stood in the living room, ran my fingers across the worn wood of the dining table. This table, where we held Emily's first birthday, where Oscar once scribbled with crayons in first grade. Now it's just faded memory, a relic of something that used to feel like love. I walked through each room, no rush, no regret. I took only what was mine, and only mine. My father's old watch, a tarnished silver ring, the one gift I ever bought myself after 10 years of work, my toolbox, my most prized possession, and finally a photo album. Inside, a picture of me holding newborn Emily, back when her smile was still real. Everything else I left behind. I wasn't packing bitterness. On the table I placed 3 envelopes, labeled Ruth, Emily, Oscar, and next to them, I propped up that cheap plastic trophy, the award they gave me, declaring me the #1 disappointment. This time I didn't laugh. I walked to the garage, opened the trunk of my old Silverado, the one Ruth always called that outdated hunk of junk. I loaded my bags, checked my list one last time. Papers, cash, keys to my new apartment, new phone, private bank account, everything was ready. 2:13 a.m. I turned the key, Garage lights came on. The rest of the house sat in darkness behind me. No one called out. No one knew this time. I wasn't coming back. I pulled out of the driveway. Through the window, I caught a glimpse of the shadow of that old tree casting across the wall where our wedding photo used to hang. It's probably gathering dust by now, just like the love that once held this house together. I drove away. No sound, no tears, just release. 8:47 a.m., Sunday. My phone buzzed nonstop. 5th missed call from Ruth. A text from Emily. Dad, where are you? Mom's freaking out. A call from a number I didn't recognize. Probably Aunt Anna or someone else from Ruth's side of the family. I didn't answer the phone, just cracked open a lukewarm can of coffee and sat down in the wooden chair inside my new apartment. Simple, quiet, and peaceful in a way that almost hurt to feel. Just hours ago, I was the one holding that whole house together. Paying the bills, fixing burnt-out bulbs, carrying the weight no one ever acknowledged. But right now, I was just a man sitting alone, listening to the ticking of a clock in a room that felt exactly the size of the emptiness in my chest. 9:13 a.m. Ruth called again. I didn't pick up. A few minutes later, a message lit up the screen. Where are you? This isn't funny. Emily's crying. Oscar keeps asking and no one can answer him. Still nothing from me. 10:02 a.m. A call from Mike, a guy I used to work with. Hey, you all right? Ruth just showed up at the plant, still in her bathrobe, looking like a ghost. Started screaming in the lobby, said you ran off and took all the money. Whole place lost it. Security had to walk her out. I closed my eyes, exhaled through my nose. Ruth was putting on the biggest show of her life. And this time, I wasn't in the cast. She thought I'd come running back, head down, apologizing like I always did. But the curtain had dropped. The lead had left the stage. 11:25 a.m. Text from Emily. A photo. The 3 letters I left behind. Caption. You're seriously walking out over a joke? You're leaving us for this? I stared at the image. Oscar's envelope sat at the bottom, a little crumpled, like he'd read it over and over. I pictured his face reading the line I wrote. I'll always be your dad, and you'll always have a place to come back to, if you ever need it. 12 p.m., I turned on the TV, not to watch, just to drown out the screaming inside. Final message came at 1 p.m., from Ruth. I don't know where you are, but you ruined everything. Coward. I set the phone down, sat at my desk, checked over the hiring paperwork for my new job, set my alarm clock, wanted to make sure I got there on time. The apartment stayed silent. But inside me was a man who had walked straight out of hell, with nothing but a fragile hope for a better life. Day 15 since I left, late afternoon. It started to rain, not heavy, just soft, cool, like the world was gently warning me that something was about to change. I had just set down a bowl of instant noodles when my phone rang. The name on the screen, Oscar. I stared at it. For the first time in all these days, my son had called me. I picked up, didn't say a word, just waited. His voice broke the silence. Hesitant, quiet. Dad, can I come stay with you this weekend? I swallowed hard. Of course, son. I'll come get you. Saturday, 10:12 a.m. Oscar stood outside my apartment with a backpack, a bag of fast food, and that quiet, guarded posture I knew all too well. I opened the door. We looked at each other for a long moment. No tears, no dramatic hugs, just a slow nod and a soft sentence. This place is kinda nice, Dad. I smiled. Not as cool as your room back home, but I think we could fit a gaming desk in here if we tried. Oscar gave a soft laugh. It wasn't full, not yet, but it was the first real smile between us in what felt like forever. That afternoon, 2 men, one older, one still learning, ate cold pizza on a folding table. I told him about the '67 Mustang I was planning to restore. Oscar looked up, eyes brighter than usual. Can I help? He asked. I looked at him, nodded slowly. Only if you're ready to learn how to wipe off engine grease first. That night, as I passed the living room, I saw Oscar asleep on the couch, arms wrapped around a soft pillow. But what stopped me cold, what made my chest tighten, was what lay on the table beside him. The trophy, the world's #1 disappointment trophy. The birthday gift that broke me. The one that started it all. It was cracked. One corner chipped off, held together with clear tape. Maybe Emily had smashed it. Maybe Oscar had picked it up and taped it back together. Maybe it was the apology he couldn't say out loud yet. I walked over, lifted it gently. Not with anger, not with sadness, just with the hands of a father who knew his son still loved him, even if he didn't know how to show it yet. I placed the trophy on the bookshelf, right between a few model cars I'd been working on. Someday, maybe it'll sit beside a new photo, of me and my boy standing next to a finished Mustang. One quiet weekend morning, I had just finished fixing the cabinet hinge when my phone rang. Unknown number? I hesitated, then picked up. "Hi, Dad. It's me, Emily." A long pause. I was wondering if we could talk. Only if you're okay with that." Her voice wasn't sharp like before, not cold. It shook slightly, carrying a kind of shame I hadn't expected. She hadn't reached out once in the week since I left. And honestly, I hadn't expected her to. But now, here she was, a small hand reaching across the wall we'd built. We met at a small cafe near my place. My breath felt heavier with every step. My heart pounded like a hammer in my chest. She was already there, sitting in the corner, cupping a mug of cocoa, staring out the window. Our eyes met, and for a long second, we said nothing. I sat down. She bit her lip, then finally spoke. "I was wrong, Dad. I was awful. I thought that stupid joke didn't matter. I didn't understand what you were carrying." I didn't answer right away. My face stayed still. But inside, her words were melting away, a layer of frost I didn't know was still there. "I dropped out of school," she said softly. "But I went back. I realized if I kept living the way I was, I'd become someone just like Mom. And I don't want that. I'm sorry, Dad. And thank you for not giving up on me." My throat tightened. My eyes stung. She reached out. I took her hand, squeezed it gently. A few weeks later, on a late autumn afternoon, I heard a knock at the door. I assumed it was Oscar, back again for the weekend. I opened it without thinking. But it wasn't him. It was Ruth. No makeup, no silk blouse, just a worn coat, tired eyes, and a piece of paper in her hand. "I signed it," she said quietly. "But if you'll let me, I don't want it to just end there." She talked, told me about the therapy sessions, about the first time in years she looked in the mirror and finally saw that she too was a fracture in our marriage. Not just a victim of it. She didn't beg, didn't defend. She was just a woman who once chased illusions and was now finally ready to own her part in the breaking. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for the chance to make things right, bit by bit, through action." I didn't say anything. Then winter came. Snow fell gently across the porch, a soft blanket of white settling on the old wooden steps. In the kitchen, the scent of mushroom soup filled the air, blending with the warm hint of cinnamon from a little pie Emily was watching carefully in the oven. Oscar sat on the floor, reassembling the engine on a model car I just picked up for him. Ruth stood quietly by the window, looking out at the backyard where I was adding a few new slats to the bench out on the porch. It wasn't a perfect family, but it was one learning how to love again, from the beginning. When dinner was served, Ruth gently pulled out the chair at the head of the table. "You should sit here," she said, her eyes meeting mine, a little uncertain. I smiled softly. "You sure about that? I'm still the guy with the world's #1 disappointment trophy, remember?" Emily giggled, reaching into her coat pocket. She pulled out something small, another plastic trophy. But this one had a handwritten note taped to the front. "World's most proud, worthy man." Oscar raised his hand to signal the start of a song, a slightly early Christmas tune. Ruth sat beside me. She didn't say anything. She just reached under the table and gently took my hand. I looked around, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel empty. Not because the scars were gone, but because we were all here. Because we had chosen to stay through the hard parts and piece together the things we once thought were too broken to fix. The lamp above us cast a soft golden glow across my face. The lines were still there, but they didn't feel so heavy anymore, because now I knew. I was no longer a disappointment. I was a father, a husband, a man who had found the courage to stand back up and the grace to open his heart again. Outside, the snow was falling heavier, but inside that kitchen, laughter had returned, and the fire was burning again. Not just in the hearth, but in the quiet warmth of understanding, forgiveness, and love. If this story left you sitting in silence for those last few seconds, then maybe, just maybe, it touched something real inside you. Leave a comment, even just a single line, so I know you're still here, still listening. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be told, support the channel by hitting subscribe. Because somewhere out there, someone might need to hear this exact story to find the courage to keep going. Thank you for listening.